Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode of Channel Your Light, Own Your Intuitive. For those of you who are new here, my name is Erin Chandler. I am so grateful that you are here with me for the Great Awakening, the Great Ascension, and everything else in between that likely you are all experiencing. So something that has really been coming up for a lot of people, I don't think that I've encountered anyone that hasn't experienced this somewhere along the spectrum of energy. So it's kind of like the art of ascension, I wish to say. It's easier to go through things when you understand what you're going through. It's very bumpy and it can feel very discombobulated and up here and down there and over here and over there when we don't really know what the process is that we're going through. And that's kind of like what ascension is. Everybody thinks, oh, we're going up to this light, we're going through ascension, but that's not really what it feels like, because we're moving from, as I've said previously in multiple channels, we're moving to a different dimensional consciousness. So what does that actually mean? It means we're graduating from one school of thought into another school of thought at lower dense veiled space, into a higher dimensional or less dense, lighter frequency space where we're seeing more, we're experiencing more, we're sensing more. Yes, that means you will see more truth. And every time you see more truth, your frequency will heighten. And every time your frequency heightens, you are going to understand more truth. There are multiple layers to this. Nobody just goes through this on the earth plane and it's a one and done, or I'm from here to there. It's a process no matter what. And it's a process because mental health is involved in it. How you operate in the physical 3D vessel that you have, that's impacted. Your emotions are deeply impacted when we move through ascension. In addition, our thought forms, the way we think, how we think, what we think, and why we think really gets expanded and opened up into multiple different aspects or dimensions. So typically those who have a higher frequency see more truth, all of those different things, seeing in the unseen, they're usually accessing multiple dimensions. And what are dimensions? They're simply perceptions. Think about the 3D model, the 4D model, and the 5D model. If we're looking at graphic designer, I'm getting coming in here, somebody's a graphic designer or some type of an architect, structural engineer. I'm seeing a lot of graph papers. So everybody's gonna feel this in a different way. 2023 was our preparation year. Most of you notice this year has been crazy. Externally on the grand stage, but both internally, right? Some of you are gonna find you let go of a lot of stuff. Things went way better than expected and other things went abysmally not the way you expected. You probably felt like this year had a lot of exposure to truth in the external world. You'll probably feel like some of you have gotten a ton of confirmations and validations of what you've been experiencing since 2020, 2025, 2000. Like there's all these different dates coming in. At the end of the day, we're all moving in an ascension process. In an ascension process, the separation gets bigger. How do I describe this? Ashtar wishes to describe this. And during the ascension process, we all experience it differently because we have different layers that we are dealing with based on our different journeys. Some of you will feel like you are being pulled from the inside out. There will be no words to describe this. It's almost like some are being expanded and some are being contracted. It is a process, and both sides of the coin, or both involution and evolution, are required for ascension, regardless of when it shows up or how it shows up. There will be those of you that feel you are in hermiting mode, that your emotions are on a giant swing. There will be those of you who have very high highs in frequency and then lower lows. There are others of you on this ascension process who have actually been moving for it for a longer period of time than you have realized. You will be noticing the balance. You will be noticing that your baseline frequency has risen. When you separate your energy from all other external energies, you begin to discover that you feel at peace. You feel grounded and you feel powerful. This is because you're within your one innate divine power. The reason this is important is most of us through the ascension process, the push and pull and the dark and the light and all the things that appear to be dark It's actually just releasing entanglements. It's unentangling you and your energy from the external or projected energies of the others around you. On the earth plane, because most of you have lived multiple lives on this plane, there are entanglements, not just from this physical 3D aspected face value place, but there's multiple entanglements that are being unentangled at this time that actually has to do with all of those different life aspects, different areas of consciousness, different realms, all of those different things at the same time. This can be an extremely bumpy process. There will be places where you feel like you are doing it wrong, like you don't understand. You may find old emotions suddenly coming up. This is a purging. Each of you have been engaged with a catalyst energy, whether you recognize it or not. Some of you will attune to it immediately. Others of you will look back and recognize that that was a catalyst energy that you engaged with, but it will not become clear until you've moved further along the ascension process of purging. Again, these are just simply unentangling you from the energy, the quantum entanglements that you've had with others. I'm seeing when things collide, something new grows, and sometimes during the process of ascension, things have collided, but nothing new grew from it that was of a positive aspect. It actually created wounding. You held on to the wounding. So it's like taking the burden of that and relinquishing it. So I'm being told, yes, you will feel a ton of different things during this process. I know for me, the experience of this has been extreme fatigue. Like there are days where in the middle of the day, suddenly all my energy was gone. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I had to go lay down and sleep. And I followed this. The reason I follow this is I couldn't have stayed awake if I wanted to. So, but that's neither here nor there. Following your physical avatar body is of utmost importance right now because your body is your last line of defense. Think about it. Think about the different layers of this. If we go up to the top 12th chakra, what is that? That's the divine gateway. That's oneness. That's all that is. That's unity. It's a very high light frequency with superior clarity. It really is. And when we get down to the base root of it, the root chakra, the root foundation, that's usually where most of us in these lower earthly bodies are dealing with a lot of dense energy and entanglements. So if you think about your body as your barometer, it's your last line of defense when it comes to telling you that something is wrong, when it's telling you it needs something. A lot of you will have noticed during this year, you have transitioned from perhaps liking different foods, no longer liking foods that you liked, having a different physical way of being. A lot of you will have noticed physical changes. Some of you further along in the ascension process or just in the process of evolution. We don't even need to really call it ascension. They're telling me, yes, we do, because ascension is essentially the descension of your higher self and high frequencies embodied in the physical vessel on the 3D earth plane. That is not an easy feat, particularly when most of us are walking around in a very 3D contextual aspect perspective and only facing this way. But when we open up to the multiple dimensions, there are times and moments where you may feel that you are losing your mind. And in essence, you are losing your mind. You're losing the pieces of the mind that tell you there's only this. Ashtar. I'm seeing somebody, a horse racetrack. I'm seeing somebody with a horse with blinders on this way. And it's like, we're just going to take those blinders off. You're suddenly going to have peripheral senses. You're suddenly going to be able to sense different things happening in different dimensions at the same time. This can negatively impact mental health. It can amplify mental health issues that already exist. We're talking about the mind. The mind is the greatest asset. Everything is originated from a consciousness, the consciousness of God, source, creator, spirit, whatever you wish to call it. It's all coming from there. Thought forms are a product of consciousness. Our physical bodies are a product of consciousness. Everything that has ever been created on this earth plane and seen by someone's eyes or imagined or visioned is a product of consciousness. This is important to understand because if your body is a barometer and your consciousness is rising, your baseline frequency that perhaps has been here for the last 30 years, 50 years, 60 years, that's just been increased. If your baseline is increased, your low lows begin to rise up with it, because the baseline's no longer here, bringing your lows down to the densest forms here. Your baseline's now here, which means your low dense forms are going to be not so low, not so deep, and not so dense. The reason we need to address the physical body at this time, we're going to come back to the mental health piece, because that's also intrinsic. They're all intrinsically connected. You cannot have one without the other. They are intertwined unequivocally. And even though they're different layers and levels and depths of consciousness that can attune to it, we're literally aligning this stuff all at once. And it's a lot. When we're realigning, when we are expanding, we're being unentangled from all of these other things that do not belong in our energetic fields if we wish to be in alignment. So as our consciousness rises, as our frequency rises, as Gaia's frequency is rising in tune, in alignment at the same time, because don't forget, we're in a 26,000 year cycle right now, and give or take a few years on that, that's not an exact number. We're in an hourly cycle, a daily cycle, a monthly cycle, an annual cycle, decade cycles. We're in centurion cycles. We're in millennia cycles. But above all, right now, what's happening at the same time as this Great Awakening is the 26,000 year cycle, which is the big mama, I want to say, of Gaia's earth plane shift. Let's say your frequency hasn't raised. When the earth plane electromagnetic field shift, yours is going to shift too. It is inevitable. You cannot survive unless you adapt or acclimate to the different changes. So some of you are actually experiencing physically, emotionally, and mentally the effect of Gaia's frequency shifting, changing, rising. You're feeling the effect of that rise, and so too do we rise as well. In addition, when we talk about the body being the last line of defense, if my body is so tired that I cannot stay awake, I need to sleep. And do you want to know why I need to sleep? I need to sleep because something is being removed. Something's being healed. Sometimes they show me the brain lit up and pulling out different cords. It's almost like if you look at computers, the back of old computers or old motherboards, I'm hearing, and you see all the different wires and they all have different colors and they all do different things. It's like the ones that don't serve you, or the ones that can't come along with this new school of thought or consciousness, that stuff has to be removed. That can be exhausting, because whatever was in there, in your brain, in your track, in your thoughts, has actually been creating, cultivating, forming, and operating how your physical avatar experiences the world, whether it's through pain, whether it's through illness, whether it's through light frequency, whether it's through exhaustion. It doesn't matter what that is. Your thought patterns directly affect it. So if our brains are, I'm seeing, I see this a lot. Sometimes I see this in clearings when I do this with people. So they're showing me, it's like taking out, let's say I have a cord or a pattern of fear in the old motherboard that's literally being disentangled, unplugged, and removed, transmuted. And what's being rewired in its place is the complete opposite. So there's a light one. Everybody, fearless, let's say, as an example. Everybody has something different. Some people were just pulling stuff out because what you need is already there, but it's been covered over, or it's almost like I'm seeing white cords and black cords, and somebody's taken a black cord and wrapped it around the white one, entangled it, intentionally entangling it. Because make no mistake, if you can unentangle these and remove them, you can also add any track thought form in that you want to. It's the concept of reprogramming your mind in like a, I want to say in like a descriptive vision that will be easily understandable by the collective, to look at it in that aspect. You could also look at implants into people's energy and thought implants. All of those different things are also playing a role as well. Not only can we implant something, we can also remove anything we wish to as well. The reason why most people feel good at this state and time, why some people are youthing and glowing and just look so healthy and vibrant and magnetized, is because they're no longer having other people's energy. They're just in their own energy. When you're just in your own energy, you're just in your own divine power. You're empowered. You no longer have the fear because you're in your energy. Typically, that fear-based modality isn't always just a pattern that's been ingrained in us or implanted or socially conditioned. Sometimes it's directly connected and transferred through an individual that you have in your life. It can be transferred through energetic cords, ACA cords, conduits, portals. There's so many different aspects here. So let's move on to the thought patterns of things. If our mind is our greatest asset and it can access anything in consciousness, it can rewrite itself. It can go down a negative track or a positive track, both of them. When we're rewriting it or when we're pulling things out and replacing it with something else, we have to have consistency and we have to have discipline. This is not the first time I've talked about this on this channel. But in the ascension process, oftentimes, well, what I have seen, Ashtar is saying almost all the time, when somebody doesn't have a really good grip on their mental health, when they don't have the ability or the understanding to differentiate what is happening, when it's happening, and why it's happening, or they are totally engrossed in fear, they kind of get stuck in places, is when I say, he says they don't just get stuck, they get entangled and bogged back down. So taking them back into that dense 3D. During the thought processes, during the mental health, when we don't have the ability to differentiate between, oh, I'm releasing that, that's not mine, that's somebody else's, that's spirit, that's my own internal core essence, that's this person's thought forms over there, that's somebody projecting on me, oh, and those thought forms, that's actually in the collective right now, flying around. That's the stuff that you have to differentiate when you're in an ascension process. Now, the reason why we want to clear our energies and maintain our own frequency and not have the influx and the flow of everyone else is because all of that stuff is confusing, friends. There have been many times where I thought, am I losing my freaking mind right now? Fortunately for me, I've always gotten proof of it in the physical 3D world afterwards. So for me, that is part of how I was able to differentiate it. That and the ability to see into different things. That's a whole other video that we'll talk about, because all of you have those skills. And if you don't already, you will come into them to some type of degree. I'm getting 33rd degree Masons, 33rd degree Masons, the ability to move the energy, to understand the secrets of the universe, to take all the Hermetic principles, along with a number of other occult teachings. Okay, that's interesting. So there's either somebody on here, you've been researching that, somebody on here, you are part of that. Someone else on here is trying to understand what I'm doing or what's going on. There's that too. Let me tell you, says my guide. There's also somebody trying to influence thought forms as well, or influence the information that comes through the channel, what is streamed through. That's a whole other video. We're going to talk about both the art of channeling. We're also going to talk about that in addition in the mind control section and the psyop section, because even though they're slightly different, they all the same for a number of reasons. So when we think about the ascension process and what everybody's experiencing right now, yes, everybody's experiencing it slightly differently, but there are commonalities in the process that you might experience. So like the physicalness, the extreme fatigue. Some of you will get sick, like physically ill. Sometimes physical illness is actually the purging of the old implants, the old thought patterns, and the dense energy that was created in the physical avatar. Because remember, this is your physical avatar is the densest point of your consciousness in this experience. It's the densest point because it's created what appears to be a solid form, when in essence, there's space in between everything, right? But this is the densest area. If you have something where our baseline frequency has risen to here, and you have a dense frequency in your body that was formed by your baseline frequency being here, or your consciousness being here, that actually has to be purged out of you. Yes, sometimes it shows up as illness. That's true. Is that the case all the time? Definitely not. This is solely specifically attuning to the aspects of ascension, expansion, all of those different things. Like the teenage stage where you're growing and changing and evolving, and it's rapid and it's shifting, and you're not sure if you're here and you're not sure if you're there, and you're in between. You're no longer a child, but you're also not an adult. There's also that as well. So it can feel like that. We don't really know where we're going. We can't really connect the dots or see what we're becoming until we get a certain amount of the way there, in order for us to be able to turn around and be like, oh, right, there's that, and putting all the pieces together. So Ascension is kind of like, it's like jumping off the cliff to float on a rainbow and hoping the damn rainbow will catch you. Sometimes that's how I would describe it, like total surrender. It's being done from the inside out. And that's why things on the external world are having such a very clear separation. What is really dense is going to become even more dense and dark. What is really light is going to become an even higher light frequency. This is to allow you to attune easily and better to the things you're going to. So think about Abraham Hicks. They say the contrast, right? We're getting into extreme contrasts, my friends. And if we're in extreme duality contrasts here, this is why I'm always asked to go here, because I struggle when we're in the contrast. And when I say I struggle, I mean, how do I love both ends of it and utilize both, using the darkness for good or darkness for light, right? How do I assimilate those things? How do I reconcile them? How do they integrate and mesh together? I can't understand that or even feel comfortable on my journey if I'm in the middle of it down here in the back and forth. And some people, you're in the back and forth to push you to come up to here to begin to observe and view from that higher state. Think about it. Spirit, mind, body, all these things are interconnected. So it's, again, the triad, which is what my daughter has always taught me and is utilizing the triad. But if we're in this duality of dark and light, like friends, at some point you're going to get really tired of this and you're going to have to move here. And you're going to have to move here because that's where you're in your own power. We need everybody in their personal power as much as possible, at least those who have come to that place, that understanding, or have awakened to those things. You have to be in your personal power. I can never be in my personal power if I've got this person's opinion in here, this person's shooting implants in over here about thought forms, that person's trying to cast a spell to negatively impact energy or stop someone from doing something. All these things happen to people, friends. And it's not everybody. Not everybody experiences those things. If you have, you actually know it. And I'm just confirming for you what you already know. If you haven't, that's okay too. I'm glad you haven't. But it's understanding that everything around us, if that's in my energy, how can I be in my full power unless I move it out? Moving everything out of my energy so that the only thing streaming through is divine power. That's an art. I feel like that takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of understanding. It takes a lot of learning. It takes a lot of practice. It's not like a one and done. If it was, we wouldn't be enslaved on the earth plane in the way that we think we are. And vice versa, if we go to this aspect of it, I can't observe something for what it is unless there is the opposition or the contrast. If I feel like I need freedom, if I'm here for freedom, it's because my experience has not been freedom. Otherwise, why would I go towards that? Do you see what I mean? In order for me to go towards I have to be enslaved in order to be freed. Do you see that concept as well? I feel like I'm not getting any of this right, but I'm just trust, because you got to have faith. I'm being told to just trust. It's those different contrasting dynamics, right? And some of it for my journey has felt very, very contrasted, and that's okay. I'm sure most of you have felt extreme contrast in your experiences as well, of darkness and of light, of truth and illusion, of in feeling like a slave and feeling free. These are all the different aspects. So as we raise our consciousness, as our frequencies heighten, as things become more and more separated in the duality and the contrast of it, this is where you'll be forced to look from here. You're being forced to go up to here and observe, where do I stand on the spectrum? Why do I stand there on the spectrum? How is my thoughts and my consciousness evolving? Some of you may have also noticed a couple of other things. Some of you may have also noticed that you're experiencing headaches. An old pain has come back just to be purged out. It might seem more extreme than it was before. You also might find that old people are coming back. Some who have changed and are aligned with you, and some who are definitely not, and this is just your confirmation. You may also notice during this process feeling like you're everywhere and nowhere at once, feeling like yourself but not like yourself, and things happening on a daily basis where it's like, I'm here in the body and I'm having this great experience, but then I move over to the rest of my day and it feels icky and dense, and you're just being shown clearly what's no longer working for you and no longer in alignment, including the external factors that have been negatively impacting you, whether you've recognized it or not. So this is a time frame where you're going to see that super clearly. It's going to feel like irritation. It might feel like emotions. It might feel like physical pain. There will be people who it will physically hurt you to be around them. There are people whose energy, it physically hurts me to even consider being around their energy. I can't. We can't. You may find yourself in the need to move right now, moving to a place that is a little less chaotic, a little more grounded. What are some of the other things? Somebody's got numbness. That's what I'm hearing. Numbness somewhere in the body. Somebody on here also has right knee pain. Right side is masculine yang energy. It's removing the blockages of that yang energy and removing anyone who creates a blockage through the energy, whether it's through transference unintentionally or it is intentional. You will be shown that very clearly so that you can remove it, because that's not coming with you. The ties that bind, I'm hearing. It's undoing the ties that have bound you is essentially what's happening. So if we go back to the context of the alignment of your energy and your body being the barometer and the last line of defense, it's the densest form at this point. Your consciousness, your thought form is rising, the frequency is rising, so too is your body going to physically change with that. You cannot change your thought patterns and your consciousness without your emotions changing, without your physical avatar changing, and without everything in the external world around you, that changing too. One cannot change without the other because we are consciousness. Everything ripples through the energy. We are a collective consciousness, which means, yes, we're having our own experience, but guess what? So is that person, that person, that person, and that person all having their own experience and their individuated consciousness in the ocean of the collective consciousness. So it's all happening at once. So I'm going to clip this here. I'm going to clip this here because I feel like that's a lot of information and I could go on and on and on about a zillion different avenues off of this. But we'll keep it at that. So if you are experiencing these things through the Ascension, you're not doing it wrong. You're just being unentangled so that you can be in alignment as you move from one school of thought to a new one, a higher frequency, as your higher self descends into the physical avatar, making space for it. That's all part of the Ascension process. I know. Yeah, you're done too. Okay. That's part of the process. So let me know in the comments if this was helpful. I know for me it was helpful. I know in my communities as well over the last few weeks, we have talked about this too. A lot of people experiencing a lot of different things, both in the external world, just people that I come across on the street or out in the neighborhood, people for readings, intuitive sessions. Everybody's experiencing some form of this. 2023 has been preparing you for this ascension. You've been in it, in the throes of it the whole time, whether you recognize that or not. Right now, I know, sweetie, it's just becoming more pronounced. Right now, it's just becoming more pronounced. And Ava needs to go outside, so I gotta catch you guys later.